What now? Now that we've created all these photographs, what are we supposed to do with them? On today's episode of Develop and Process. So this week's episode is a follow-up to last week's episode, so I'll link that here. And if you haven't seen last week's episode 20, go ahead and check that out. It's a video about projects and thinking in projects in your photography. So on that video, I got a comment by Tom Schelling. I'm going to read part of it for you. I feel that projects can be so much more powerful than individual images for exactly the same reasons you mentioned. It would be great if you did a follow-up video about how to organize and maybe go into more depth on how to share the project for maximum impact. I've been meaning to start one for the past year or so, but I've had trouble deciding just exactly how I would want to present it when it's finished. And Tom, I answered you in the comments, but I figured might as well do a follow-up video. And also this video is sort of in response to a handful of scattered comments I've gotten on various other videos where some of you have said, I appreciate that you're, talking about taking your photography seriously and doing projects and books and stuff, but, my photography doesn't have a broad enough appeal to necessarily sell it. Or, maybe it's family images or local images or something like that. And I just don't feel like people would necessarily want to consume it in that way. And so I also, in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So let's get started. First, we're going to cover a handful of ways to share your project. And this could also just be ways to share your work. You don't necessarily have to be working in a project format for these to work. They're just basic ways to share your work in print. Now, I'm assuming here that most of us are sharing our work online. If you're not, that's fine too, but I'm imagining that you're sharing it on Instagram, Facebook, Flickr, stuff like that, 500px. Maybe you have a website. So this video is talking about how to share your work once you've finished creating it, editing, and organizing it, how to share it in print. Now, I've talked in the past episode about how to come up with ideas for projects and, some different, reasons you might want to create a project. So in this video, I'm going to share with you some more work by other photographers and the work that they've done and how they've distributed it. So let's take a look at a few sample printed works. Now, zines are probably the most obvious way to share your projects. Obviously, I've described these a lot on the YouTube channel, and you're probably sick of seeing mine, which are these two here. But I wanted to show you that a friend of mine, Jim Becia, he bought my zines and then decided to make one of his own, which is called Frozen Moments. And so Frozen Moments is a project that Jim did on large format film in 8x10, and it documents his exploration of a lot of frozen scenes and like fall and winter scenes near his home. And some of these just are really beautiful close-ups of ice patterns. And they just show these incredibly beautiful leaves embedded in frozen ice surrounded by bubbles. Now, this is a project that is really interesting and I think is really well suited to this format. And as you see, like we're calling this a zine mostly for lack of a better term. It's basically a softcover portfolio book. Zines are often handmade and typically of a lower sort of fidelity. They're made on like home printers and sort of attached together yourself, which is not a bad thing, of course. It's actually pretty great. But this allows you to produce something much more akin to a professionally published book, because you are actually working with a publishing company to print these on their presses and machines. But you can also sell them online through your website, and the company Blurb will print the individual copies on demand as the orders come in. So you aren't forced to order hundreds of these at one time and then hope and cross your fingers that you sell all the magazines that you paid for. So this allows you to very affordably present your work in a very professional, polished way. And their layout software is pretty easy to use. You can also use Adobe InDesign or something. And you can see here, I mean, it's not, you don't need to have super complicated, elaborate layouts. The idea is just to give your work the space it deserves and display it alongside each other and tell a story with your words as well. So that's Frozen Moments, photographs by Jim Becia, and it's a zine. This is not something I bought at Barnes & Noble. This is something Jim did on his own and had, printed through Blurb and sent to me. But he could sell these online and people can buy them, and it's a very great way for photographers to share their work affordably without an upfront investment and be making profit on each individual sale from day one. Another good use of the zine is that you could do this for a family photo album or something like that, and then you could give gifts to your family at Christmas or maybe on their birthday of family photos, but it's much higher quality and more desirable, sort of more permanent than a lot of photo albums. It's just a really nice experience to view the work. And so that's just a really great way to present your finished work in a zine / magazine / softcover portfolio book, and to do so affordably. The next way to show your work that I want to illustrate here is a calendar. Now this calendar is especially special to me because it was done by a couple friends of mine, Walter Santos and Alex Mitroff. They are local to me here in Southern California, and this is their 2019 Inland Empire Special Edition calendar. Now, this calendar is all local photography made in non-famous locations within, say, a 45-minute drive of their homes. And that is just so special to me because what you're going to see in a minute is that the caliber of the photography in this calendar is superb. It is amazing work. And yet it's all local. And what they did is they built this calendar as a collaborative project between two photographers, and all of proceeds go to a charity organization that supports, taking better care of animals and saving animals from abusive situations. And so I think it's just a really, really great project that's for a great cause. And this is similar, they printed these, I believe they printed hundreds of these through a printing company and then sold them, but they sold tons of these at art walks and local art shows in the area. And then because it's local, people want to buy these images because they're familiar with all these locations. And so it's just a really great way for them to market the work and get it out there, and for a good cause. So without further ado, let's get into the work. Now, if any of you are familiar with the Inland Empire region of Southern California, it is known for housing tracts, strip malls, dirt bike, motocross tracks, freeways, smog, pollution, noise, chaos, and just irresponsible, crazy development. And you don't see that here. You see the beauty of the Inland Empire. And this is like, for example, this is after a rainstorm, and this is just temporary flooding after a rainstorm in what is normally just a dry valley. And yet they captured the receding rain clouds and the evening setting sun reflected in these flood pools, and it just creates this incredible ephemeral scene that really only lasted for a matter of hours probably. But just so great. And again, this place is like right near my house, and yet I've never thought to photograph this place. And I just love what they've done here. This image here, I mean, I have to look at this. This is Lake Elsinore. This is my hometown. They shot this. I see this hill from out my bedroom window. I've never once attempted to photograph it because it's surrounded by sprawling housing tracts and, mobile homes down here and stuff like that. I would have never thought to photograph it, but these guys did, and look how incredible it came out. That's not some national park. That's just a random hillside in a normal American town. Just beautiful light, great conditions. And I talked to the guys and they told me they just kept an eye out on their weather apps and such for good conditions, and then they had pre-scouted the location so they knew where the compositions were, and then they would go to those compositions when they knew that the weather and the light were going to be good. It took a long time and a lot of hard work, but man did it pay off. And so yeah, I'm talking a lot about this project obviously because I think it's just a superb project. This here is a Big Bear Lake. Again, it's not a famous lake that's frequently photographed by landscape photographers, but there you go. Amazing images. It's not Lake Tahoe. It's not some remote location. It's right in Southern California. Again, here, this is a random hill again, surrounded by housing tracts and strip malls, and yet they've isolated the hill against this large cloud and then made it black and white, and it came out so powerfully. Yet this is just an ordinary place in an ordinary town, but through their creative vision has been made, to help you see how incredible it is. I asked Walter, where did he shoot this? Because I was like, I need to know that location. It looks like Joshua Tree National Park or something. No, he's like, those boulders are on a hill behind a CVS, a drugstore, sandwiched between two housing tracts and a busy, crowded street. And yet there it is, like 100 yards from a crowded street or less. It's just, what an incredible, incredible body of work. Definitely check out Walter's work and Alex's work after this when you're done. But again, look, this is I don't think he shot this in Joshua Tree National Park. Yeah, he shot that in high desert, California. And if you've ever been through there, it's again a real dingy, like low income town that is not super desirable to live in. And yet they found this incredible, beautiful image of the Joshua tree under the Milky Way. And it's just like, this is city lights. What they've seen the beauty in it. And I just think that's so incredible. Again, random hillside. I drive by this hillside every week on my way to church, and it's like, I never have thought to stop and photograph it. Now, I've thought, wow, that's beautiful. I really should photograph it, but I've never actually pulled the trigger and done it. I never actually gotten my camera, put it in the car, driven over there, and done the work. These guys have. It just shows that getting out there in your local hometown is just such an incredible, place to photograph oftentimes, but you have to see the beauty that you normally miss. So I just think that's just so incredible. Again, I asked him where he shot this. This is in a dirt road that runs alongside a freeway. Like, it's not in a nice area. It's just this random, abandoned field that's, again, sandwiched by urban developments, but he's seen the beauty and just done that urban exploration and found scenes that were just so fantastic. This is a drinking water reservoir. It's not Lake Tahoe or Crater Lake, but I have images of Crater Lake that are very, very similar to this. And yet, right near my home, less than 20 minutes away. So, again, just so incredible. Redlands, California. This is the train station in Redlands. Again, just wow. Like, look at that. It's just so great. And so I just wanted to, and that's Alex's image right there. So that's Alex Mitroff's work. And then you just keep going through here and you just see image after image. Local. These are, we live in the Temecula wine country area, and so we have all these vineyards. And so yeah, he's gone out there and it snowed one time, one day that I can ever remember. And sure enough, Walter grabs his camera, goes out there and shoots this scene. And it's just so remarkable that he caught that ephemeral condition. This snow only lasted for a matter of hours and was gone, and it hasn't ever come back. But wow, that's thinking fast in your local area. Again, same day, snow on the grapevines. And these are the guys, and you can check out their work. And it's, again, Walter Santos and Alex Mitroff calendar. Now, again, the purpose of showing you this in this context is you can make a calendar like this with your work, and you can sell a lot of copies of it to raise some money to support your work, and you can use it for a good cause if you like, which is what they did to support the animal charity. And so it's just such an incredible example of photographing in your local area for a cause, distributing through a calendar, and making a collaborative project with another photographer. So you can just glean so many incredible, great ideas from this calendar, and I just think it's a great example of how to distribute your work well. Now, this book here is by Art Wolf, and it's a normal book. Like, this is the kind of book you're going to get at Barnes & Noble from a publisher. Now, why am I showing you this in this context? Well, we live in a day and age where you can make books like this on demand, one copy at a time, through websites like Blurb. And again, I don't have any sponsorship with them or any deal with them. They didn't pay for this. I've just used their service a lot and I really like it. But you know, you can make a book like this with your own work. And of course, I got to talk a little bit about Art's work in this because it's just so superb. But you know, there's this eclipse with the tree. I mean, but I want you to pay attention here for a second and just look at how simple this is. It's just white space, you know, which is similar to a mat. And then you've got these images laid out with a lot of breathing room, and they're paired in these harmonious sets. And the labels are only like an 8-point simple sans serif font. And then he's chosen black backgrounds for some images that benefit from black, and white backgrounds for those which benefit from a white background. Very simple, just like the last project. It's very clean, very minimalist, and yet look how powerful the presentation of the artwork is. I mean, just so clean, so beautiful. I would rather look at this than go to an art gallery a lot of times, simply because I can look at it uninterrupted for hours. You know, I was listening to a podcast this morning where Brooks Jensen talks about that. And definitely follow Lenswork podcast. He talked about a lot of really good ideas for how to share your work on his gifts episode, which is pretty recent, that just came out. But this is Art Wolf's book, and this is many, many pages. So this is going to be cost prohibitive to print this many pages probably. But you can do a similar book with fewer pages, and it's just really, really simple. It's elegant. You don't need to overcomplicate things, you know, and if you're not a writer, you don't have to write tons of text. You can maybe just do an intro explaining the project or the work, and then just let the images speak for themselves if you want. So this is a coffee table book, and this is something like an 11 by 13 inch size, just to give you an idea of the scale. But yeah, just what an incredible body of work. Now, you can use sites like blurb.com, like I said, to make a book like this with your own images and then print them on demand one at a time for yourself, your family, or even sell them through your website or your social media. And again, you know, you can set whatever profit margin you like per book sold, and then the books will be printed one at a time if you use a service like Blurb. Now, this one, again, was done through a publishing company and sold at bookstores. But to do that, you need to get a deal, like a contract deal with a publishing company. Then you got to get like an agent or publicist, and you have to promote the book, and you have to sell enough copies, and it's just so much more complicated. But if you were to do a similar project, take this idea and then use a service like Blurb and just package your photography up into a coffee table book, you can distribute it to people very, very beautifully in a really good keepsake format. So that's the coffee table book, is a great way to distribute your artwork. Now, another way to distribute your work is perhaps the most old school, simple way, which is just prints. And this is just a handful of prints that I've made. These are using my sort of ultra print process at 720 DPI from large format film. But these are just some 8x10 prints that I've made. And you can just make simple, small prints like these little 8x10s, and use them to distribute your project or your images. And you could box these up into a portfolio box like this one here, which Ben Horn sent me. And the other thing you could do is you could actually give them away, which is something that I did recently, where I had a giveaway here on the channel, and I just gave away three 8x10 prints, and those ones were the contact prints. Now, the reason I want to mention giving these away is that a lot of times we have this expectation that we have to take our work almost too seriously, where we're trying to go pro and we're trying to, you know, establish some kind of prestige or whatever through our photography. But a lot of times we need to remember just the sheer joy and beauty of creating art and then sharing it with other people just through pure generosity with no expectation of anything in return. And so lately I did the giveaway, but then I've also given away some of these to family members and stuff. to kind of just, let them enjoy some of the images. And these are people who, like for example, my wife's grandparents, they're not necessarily going to go and follow me on YouTube or maybe go and buy my work online, but they love nature. They love the national parks. And so like for them, getting a gift like this, they would really appreciate that. And a lot of us have people in our lives who would appreciate our images, but they're never going to buy them. They're never going to go to, an art gallery and look at them, or, maybe they would, but they're not going to like order a 50-inch print and put it in their living room. So you can actually just give away some prints to friends, family members, coworkers who would appreciate the work. Now, I'm not saying just dump the work on people who don't even like that kind of artwork, but if you have people that love the outdoors and you're a landscape photographer, then hey, give them some artwork. Or, you could maybe you have family members, you have some really beautiful photos of family, children or, relatives, you can give those photos away. You don't necessarily have to sell them. And so I think a lot of times we get so wrapped up in the idea of selling our work that we forget that we can just give them away for free. And a lot of times you're going to be able to get your work, into people's homes who wouldn't necessarily buy the work outright. And I think, a lot of times that can actually be really rewarding, because generosity is always rewarding. It's better to give than to receive. And also, creating is rewarding. So when you can combine creativity and generosity into one thing, a lot of times that can just be a really great way to distribute your artwork with people who might appreciate it. So don't underestimate just simple, small prints and just giving them away. Now, the reason I said 8x10 is because these are affordable to produce. You don't have to spend hundreds of dollars producing these humongous prints to put on people's living room walls. Sometimes just a simple little print like this can really, bring some light and beauty into a corner of someone's home without having to cost an arm and a leg. And it doesn't have to cost them anything. So that's just another way to distribute your artwork affordably and to a lot of people. Now, once you've created your project or your portfolio and you're ready to share it with the world, and you've looked at those options that we've just gone over, you're probably still going to want to promote it somehow. They say, build it and they will come, but that's not really true with photography. You really do have to self-promote, which a lot of us find hard. I know I find it really hard. I hate self-promotion. I think it's disgusting, but at the same time, it's like a necessary evil. But if we don't promote our work, no one's going to know about it, and then it's just kind of going to go and be forgotten. So we really definitely want to promote the work if we want to get it out there, if that's the reason we created it. Oftentimes, business cards are another really simple way to promote or distribute your work. Now, this, of course, is not directly distributing the work, but I had these made up, and these, you'll notice, now, most business cards contain contact information, but these do not. And the reason for that is that I use these cards to just promote my photography itself. They don't have contact info. They're not designed to promote me or sign business deals. They're just to get people to be aware of the images and what I do with photography. And you wouldn't believe how many times I've been at a party or a social event, get together, or just at a coffee shop, and someone asked about what I do or what I'm into, and we get talking about, photography in some context. And I just want to be able to hand them something so that they can look up the images themselves when they get home. And this is a really good way to do that. It's just some simple, really basic business cards, nothing super elaborate. And of course, you can get a little bit fancier if you want. I'm planning to do that soon, actually, and I've done it before. But business cards are just a really good way to sort of raise awareness of the work that you've done, because a lot of times we create so much work and then we don't actually distribute it. So there's another idea. So probably the best and first most obvious way to promote your work is a website. I use Squarespace for my portfolio site. I'm not sponsored by them. They didn't pay anything for this video or any of my other ones. I just use them because they're honestly the best product on the market, the best service on the market for photography websites, in my opinion. Now, I used to be a professional web designer developer for about 8 years, and I built websites for contract clients all over the world. So, the fact that I'm using them for my own personal site still today in 2018 they really do build a good product. It's a great platform, and it's so easy to use and so easy to update. So that's a good starting point, would be squarespace.com for your portfolio site. Now, you're probably going to have social media as well, like Instagram and Facebook. If you're not, I would definitely recommend getting on Instagram at least. You might think, what do I need Instagram for? It's just a bunch of stupid iPhone selfies. That's not actually true anymore. In today's world, Instagram has become the #1 dominant place for photographers to share their work and to congregate and form community and talk to each other. It is a very social network. It's a place where photographers organize meetups, hang out, talk about projects. I mean, I have constant discussions on the private messages on Instagram, and also, in response to different stories on Instagram. So if you don't have an Instagram, I would definitely recommend that you start an Instagram account just to share your photography and share great images, curate, build a portfolio, build a cohesive body of work on there. And then I just mentioned stories. Now, Instagram stories are an excellent way to share your work in the form of video. Now, maybe you don't have the time or the resources to start a YouTube channel like this one. It's exhausting, I know. It's very expensive. It's time consuming. It's difficult. But if you have, a mobile phone and you can install Instagram on it, then you can do the stories. And so Instagram stories are these 60-second videos that you can film and share with your followers on Instagram, and you can share anything on there. But it's a great way to share the behind the scenes of your work and the organization of your work, and then help people sort of become emotionally invested in the story of your work, so they'll actually want to purchase it or share it or talk about it or whatever. And maybe you'll inspire them through that as well, which is really, really great. So definitely look at Instagram stories. Another tool that you can use is a mailing list. I know some people think of that as old school, but it's actually not very old school. Some of the most successful photographers, marketers, and just different businesses in the world are still using email lists as the most successful form of marketing their business. And if you're trying to promote your work, a lot of times you just want to build a mailing list of people interested in your work, and then send out, just don't overload them, but just send out periodic updates whenever you release a new book, a new project, a new, update to your website, whatever. And a mailing list can be a great way to let people know about your work. Again, the one that I use is MailChimp. It's free for up to 2,000 subscribers, and it's a really great platform that got a lot of nice, easy to use templates. So if you want to start a mailing list, use MailChimp, and then you can also share that mailing list on your Facebook page or your website to help people sign up to it, and just definitely promote it and maybe give them a reason to sign up. So that's another tip. Again, MailChimp is just something I use. I use the free one actually, and they're not sponsoring this video. There's just a product I actually use and I think is cool. So definitely check out MailChimp.com. Facebook, in my experience, I know people get mixed results with Facebook. I have not had good results with Facebook. I think at this point, their algorithms and their sponsorship platform, the way that they demand money for your viewers, for your followers to actually see your posts, at this point is borderlining. I don't want to use too harsh of words here, but I don't like Facebook. I'm disgusted by their business at this point. And so I've really had a lot of terrible experiences with them. I've done extensive paid promotions and campaigns through them and just gotten terrible results. And then once you stop paying, they stop showing people your work. So you could have 1,000 people following you on Facebook, and then like 3 of them see your post because you didn't pay to have them see it. And I really hate Facebook. And then also your photos are just getting buried in a deluge of political, just junk. And it's just not a good atmosphere for people to be looking at your artwork. And so I do occasionally post on Facebook, but honestly, I just have not had a good experience with that platform, and I haven't had any good results from it. So it's probably worth putting your work on there just because there are certain people that are only on Facebook and not anywhere else. But Instagram, definitely a healthier community and a much more effective place to share your work, despite being owned by Facebook. Hopefully they don't continue to screw it up any further. I know there definitely been making it worse and worse over time. And then finally, YouTube. I mean, you know, maybe you've thought about starting a YouTube channel, maybe you haven't. But part of the reason I started this channel was that, you know, I talked to some of my friends, you know, Ben Horn, Alan Brock, Thomas Heaton, and I asked all these guys, you know, like, what has been the biggest thing you've done to make your photography successful? And I think all of those guys are very successful in their photography, you know, to varying degrees. And I really, you know, admired the work they were doing online. And of course, all of them were like, well, duh, YouTube, like, it's the best way to share your photography despite being a video platform. And so, you know, maybe you don't have to start a channel and upload all the time, but just producing a single video to show your portfolio or to show a project can really be a more effective way to get people to engage with your photography than necessarily putting it out there static online. And again, I covered a whole bunch of ideas for distributing projects in the first video, so definitely watch the first video. That's episode 20, my last upload. So definitely watch that too to get some more ideas around creating and distributing projects. As far as organizing your projects, that's probably a topic for a whole other video. It's a complicated subject, so I'm not even going to try to breach that here. But definitely watch the first video. Again, I talk a little bit about that, but probably a topic for another video. So I hope you found these ideas for sharing and distributing your photographs helpful. And definitely, if you have more ideas, I know there's a lot I didn't cover. Feel free to comment and share your best ideas for sharing your photography online or in person. Until next time, I'm Justin Lowry. Stay curious. Oh, and most of you still aren't subscribed to the channel, so definitely hit that subscribe button, hit the share it with your friends, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. I definitely appreciate it when you guys subscribe to the channel. It makes a real difference and it means a lot to me. So definitely think about subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And in case you hadn't noticed, I almost never talk about this on the videos anymore because I don't want to nag you guys, but it's super, super important that you subscribe to the channel. So definitely think about doing that if you haven't already. Talk to you later.